Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another video on this channel. First video that's not gonna be a game of the day. Instead, I thought I'd make a little video talking about the upcoming group stage of Worlds 2020. And I think it would be really interesting to take a look at the entire field of teams taking part in this tournament before we take a look at the specific context of the groups that these teams were drafted into. So let's get right into it. The top end of this list was easier for me to rank than the bottom end, but right at the bottom, I'm pretty sure about the two teams that I have there, and it's actually the two teams from the PCS. So at number 16, I have PSG Talon. Nope, Talon. And at number 15, I have Machi Esports. We obviously have seen PSG play in play-ins with a little bit of a different lineup, and I've also gone back and watched both the spring and summer finals of PCS this year, because these two teams have been battling in the finals of both these splits. And I must say that the level of play in the summer final hasn't really sparked joy in me, let's say. I didn't really like what I saw. I think both teams made a lot of mistakes. Machi Esports were able to close out that series 3-0, but I don't think that means that they are much better than PSG. I think they made their own mistakes in that series. And the reason I have PSG lower than Machi is because I think at play-ins, the standout for this team was actually Kongyue and Uniboy, who were loaned from HQ because of visa issues of the usual mid-jungle duo for PSG Talon, River and Tank. I think that Kongyue and Uniboy are better players than these two. And I think that PSG, with these, 3 or 4 days that they will have to reintegrate River and Tank into their lineup, I think they will struggle a little bit coming into groups. So that's basically why I have them in last place here. Machi Esports, a little bit better. As I already said, not much better in my opinion, just judging from the summer finals of PCS. But I think their coordination was a little bit better than PSG's. I think the top laner for Machi, PX I think his name is the best player on the team in my opinion. But it's tough to tell because he's usually on tank or off tank duty on the Ornn, even the Maokai, the Volibear, and I think he's a rock in the top lane, in and out of the lane. I think he's the rock that Machi also coordinate their plays around later on around objectives and team fights. I think their jungler is not as much of he's their second standout player in my opinion, but he's not as much of a rock. He's a little bit more of a volatile player. He can have these pop-off moments, for example, in Game 2 of the Summer PCS Finals, he totally popped off on Lee Sin. But on the first game, where they played exactly the same team composition, he was on Lee Sin as well. He was just pretty quiet. Their mid laner, nothing to really write home about, but solid as well. And I think the bot lane for Machi is where they are most vulnerable. I've seen them getting caught out in lane, out of lane, mispositioning, and they can have carry performances. Don't get me wrong, but I've seen more underwhelming than overwhelming moments from them. Next up for me is like a bunch of teams that I think are pretty similar in level of play. At least coming into this tournament, maybe someone shows much better performance than I expect. But like the mean level of these teams, I think is pretty similar overall. First up, we have FlyQuest to me. Machi FlyQuest, no, FlyQuest at number 14. I think the standout for FlyQuest is definitely their mid jungle. It's Santorin and Power of Evil. These two are definitely the two best performing players of FlyQuest, but I do not expect them to be able to carry them to incredible performances, because I think they are more stable players than pop-off players. Solo, I think, was good. That's a top laner. I think he was good throughout the regular season, but I think he fell apart a little bit come playoffs, and I'm really curious to see his performance at Worlds. And I think once again, just like Machi, I think the bot lane is the weak point, and I think this is where FlyQuest can be exploited quite heavily. Next up on the list, who do I have? I have Unicorns of Love, right? This is a team I'm much less familiar with than some of the other teams on this list. Their play-in stage performance is basically the only thing I've seen from this team, but I really like the creativeness they've shown there in draft and in game, their unique play style. They are not afraid to take gambles. They are not afraid to shift picks into unexpected roles, like they did with the Orianna into bot lane, which worked out really well for them. And I think their aggressiveness can backfire, like it did in the one game they lost in the regular part of the group stage of play-ins, where they got pretty trashed by R7, who didn't even get out of the group stage. And that's like one example where their playstyle can backfire against them. And I think we're going to see that once or twice in this group stage, but I think we're also going to see them pull out some really good performances that people would maybe not expect from them. One spot up, I have LGD. We've seen LGD bounce back from a really bad performance in the group part of play-ins and win 2 best-of-5s, 3-0 back-to-back. I think this was the strong point for LGD, but I don't think their group stage performance in play-ins was just them not caring and it all being fun and games. I think they definitely have big weak points in top and bot lane that can be exploited. Once again, their mid jungle is their standout. Peanut and Xie are the strongest players on this roster. A couple of years back, when Kramer played on Afrika, I was watching him play in the LCK, and I was actually a fan of his gameplay. And so I thought, okay, LGD with everyone's talking about Peanut and Xie, I'm sure Kramer should be in that conversation. But after watching LGD's playoff run, their gauntlet run, and now the performance in play-ins, I think most analysts are pretty correct in leaving him out of that win condition discussion for LGD. I think Peanut and Xie are the players you should talk about there. Langxing in the top lane, I think, is pretty susceptible to getting exploited, especially by better competition that they will face now in the group stage of Worlds. And I think their bot lane, the same goes for them. I put them over Unicorns of Love and FlyQuest because I think their mid duo is better than the players on these two teams. But I also think they are more volatile, especially Peanut. He can definitely have insane carry performances and then in the next game fall incredibly flat and basically just end the game away by being overly aggressive. One spot up, maybe a little bit surprisingly, I have TSM. I think, so TSM, obviously they won the NALCS playoffs. Congrats to them, but they didn't really convince me that they are a world-class team. They won it from the lower bracket part of the bracket, which I love that we've gotten to a point in League of Legends where we have lower brackets in these tournaments, and I love to see a lower bracket run to the finals and winning it all. But those series, if I'm not mistaken, all or nearly all of them were 3-2 for TSM. They were anything but clean. And I think coming into this tournament now and maybe facing stronger competition than they did in NA, I think the weak points on TSM will be exploited a little bit more. The obvious strong point for TSM is Bjergsen. But I don't think he can shine in the same way at this Worlds that he does in NA. So in NA, multiple times he was able to blind pick champions that should be heavily punished in lane, and he wasn't punished for these picks. And I don't think the same will be possible at this Worlds. Because this won't be possible, I think Spica won't look as good as he did in their championship run in the NALCS, so I do expect him to fall off quite a bit. Broken Blade and Doublelift I have kind of on a similar skill level to each other. I think they're good players, but I don't expect them to break out and carry TSM against better opposition. And then I'm really not convinced by either of the two bot laners, the two supports for TSM, Biofrost or Treats. I think they are definitely the weakest part of this team. Just above them, I have a team that's in their group. It's Fnatic. And I think for Fnatic, their mid-jungle duo is basically the other way around as for TSM. Their jungler is the one that's their biggest carry. I'm a huge fan of Selfmade. I think he's really, really good. I think he was the best performing jungler in LEC this split. Just because, so Jankos obviously was really good as well, but he didn't show the carry performances that Selfmade showed, and that's why I have Selfmade just a little bit higher. The weak point for Fnatic is the other player in their mid 2v2, it's Nemesis. I think the only really good performance we saw from Nemesis was on the Lucian, that they played together with the Evelynn against Rogue, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that was really good from him, and on everything else and in all other games he looked exploitable, let's say. I think Rekkles had a really good year, a really good summer split. He's actually beasting it in bot lane, and I think Hylissang will pull it together at least a little bit for Worlds. I think we've seen it enough times from him that at international competition he won't be the one to at least completely end the game, which he sometimes does in regular season games. And I think Bwipo in the top lane is kind of a volatile player as well. So I'm definitely not really high on TSM, on Fnatic, but I think all their players except Nemesis. So Nemesis for me is the lowest point for Fnatic. Selfmade and Rekkles I think are really good. And then somewhere in between you have Bwipo and Hylissang, and it really depends on their form on the day, whether or not they're gonna step up to Rekkles and Selfmade or fall to Nemesis. And that's what's gonna determine if Fnatic gets wins or not. Above that, at number 9, yeah, I have Team Liquid. So Team Liquid, I think, is the 3rd seed out of NA. We've seen them at play-ins, and so it might be weird to have them the highest of all the NA teams. But I think they're going to be the strongest at this Worlds tournament. The strongest point for Team Liquid is CoreJJ, for sure. A lot of their game revolves around CoreJJ. A lot of the plays they make, their late game coordination, their team play, the plays they make revolve around CoreJJ. Their solo laners, I think, are solid. Both Jensen and Impact have shown repeatedly that they can hang at international competition. They're not gonna break out and carry against the best of the worlds, but they're definitely gonna hold their own. And in tactical, I think they have a support at Rookie that is gonna show good performances as well. Obviously, he's a rookie, and you have to kind of give him give some leniency to his state as a rookie. I think it's definitely possible that he falls flat at this tournament. I think it's possible for any rookie, no matter how good they perform. It's just you can't really say, oh no, this player is too good, he won't fall to the pressure. I think every rookie can feel the pressure at Worlds and kind of underperform. And I think the weakest point for Team Liquid is Broxah, the jungler. I think he's a little bit too defensively minded for the meta. I think he tries to defend his lanes more than facilitate them. And I think sometimes his pathing is just that little bit off that he can't even do that, can't even protect and defend them. And so their solo lanes often have to fend for themselves so you don't get leads. And then it's really that late game team fighting where Team Liquid find their success. But I think they have enough individual skill that they can make it work at Worlds well enough to be at my number 9 spot. At number 8 I have Rogue. I'm a big fan of Rogue's jungle mid duo. Inspired and Larssen, I think, are really good players. I think Larssen put in a performance in Summer Split that would have been worthy of an MVP award, but he was outdone by Caps, who was insane this Summer Split, and so he's the second best mid laner coming out of LEC. I think together with Inspired, he forms a very good mid jungle duo. I think this is what Rogue should play around. I think their bot lane is solid. I think Hansama and Vander have more good than bad games. They can fall flat sometimes. They can be the reason the team loses a game sometimes. But it's really rare that we see this from this team. The reason they lose the game way more often is Finn, their top laner. And this number 8 placement for Rogue is pretty dependent on them putting Finn on tanks, not on carries. I don't really want to see him on the Gangplank or Camille or Renekton. If you get Ornn, put him on the Ornn, put him on Sion, put him on picks like this. And I think this team can be pretty successful. So now we're getting into the top part of the ranking. In number 7, yeah, I have DRX. First thing you have to mention about DRX is Chovy. He's a monster in lane. He's not gonna win every single lane he's up against. There are some mid laner that can definitely hold their own against him on this list, still coming. But if he doesn't win it, he will at least go even. But that's the thing about Chovy. I think this is the defining feature about him. He's a lane monster, and he's definitely not bad in like late game team fights around objectives, but he's not as much of a beast as some other players in that context. The second star for DRX is Deft in the bot lane. He's not been popping off this summer, but he's definitely solid. And for their support in jungle, DRX have 2 rookies, Keria in support and Pyosik in the jungle. I'm a big fan of Keria in support. He's been really strong in spring, I think, and sadly he's been kind of falling off the later that the year went on. But still a strong support, and I think if he doesn't fall to the nerves and the pressure at Worlds, he can definitely have very good performances alongside Deft. I think that can be a combo that really wins some games for them as well at this Worlds. The top side is where I have the most worries for DRX. I think Pyosik can become a really good jungler in time. I think he's more middling right now. And Doran in the top lane, I think, is a little too volatile for this team. I think sometimes he can lose games for this team alone. He can have carry performances, you know, but I'd rather have a solid top laner alongside this team with Chovy and Deft than a top laner who wants to carry, and sometimes that backfires. Above the RX, I have Suning. This is a team so this is a rather new team, new on the world stage, and for the LPL, I basically, so just for some context, I watched a lot of LEC, this split I watched a lot of LCK, those are the main leagues I follow, and then I watched the hype matchups and the playoffs for LPL, and for Suning I also watched their bracket, their gauntlet run to Worlds, and I watched some of the regular season games. And I've got to say, I'm once again a big fan of their mid-jungle duo. I think for a lot of these teams, it's true that their mid-jungle duo is the best part of their team, and I think that really plays into the meta, and I think that's why we have a lot of these teams qualifying for Worlds. You know, LGD, Suning, DRX with Chovy, Rogue with Hans Sama, with Larsen and Inspired. And I think the same is true for Suning. Angel is really, really good. I think he's gonna show a good performance at this Worlds. And SOFM out of the jungle, those are the two best players on Suning. They have Sword Art in the bot lane and support, who's maybe the biggest name for this team, but he's actually not the main carry for this team anymore. He's more of a middling support in my opinion now. Huanfang, the AD carry that he's paired with in bot, is good in my opinion. He can have pop-off performances, and they are more often than his bad performances. But yeah, he's more of a little bit of a volatile player. And then in top Suning have Bin, who I don't expect to win them games outright. But it's also not going to be the one reason why Suning falls flat at this Worlds, I believe. Next up, I have Gen G. I'm actually a big fan of this team because I like their play style. I like their uniqueness a little bit as well, because the best player on this team I think is Ruler for sure. The AD carry for Gen G, he's been beasting it all summer split, and he's basically the player that Gen G revolve around, and I think that's cool to see that that's still possible in the meta. His support is Live, who I haven't seen too much of, but he's definitely performing well alongside Ruler, supporting Ruler. I think they are a very good bot lane at this tournament, and I think together with BDD in the mid lane, these are the win conditions for Gen G. I think BDD, in contrast to Chovy, he's a little bit less of a lane player, less of a lane monster. He's still going to farm very well, and he's going to farm up to team fights around objectives and in a later game. And I think he really puts in the work in those team fights. The top and jungle for Gen G, I think, are a little less noticeable or less of a win condition for them, but I think are still strong. Rascal, I think, is similar to Doran, where I don't actually like to see him a lot on carries and play towards, because I think, sure, he can have carry performances, but he's just less of a stable player and less of a consistent carry than BDD and Ruler. And I would rather see this team play towards those two players and win through them, because I think those are definitely the standouts on this team, Ruler and BDD. Next up, I have G2. As I already mentioned, Caps was a beast all summer, spring long. And yeah, he performs. He's in really good form. He's been performing really, really well. He's definitely the standout on this team, together with Wunder, who really stepped it up in the playoffs for LEC. And I think both of these players can definitely go head to head with the best players coming out of Asia. And I think they can hold their own in the lane. Together with Jankos, who's been playing a bit more of a facilitating lane playstyle in this summer split with a lot of time on the set especially. I think these three players form a very, very strong top side for G2. And I think this is where the biggest win conditions lie. Because I think the bot side for G2 is actually a little weak at the moment. I think Perkz is not as good as he was last year. Last year he had an entire year to really get into that AD carry role. He had the Kai'Sa and Xayah, who were insanely strong in the meta. And, you know, this year he had some private issues towards the first half of the summer split. He played mid in the spring split, and all of that kind of culminates in him playing not to the level of Perkz last year. He's still a solid AD carry, I would say. I like that he played a lot of Ashe lately, because that's where he can have a lot of use outside of just hard carrying the team. And yeah, I think their entire bot side is kind of a bit worse off than last year, because I also think Mikyx hasn't been playing to the same level that we saw last year from him. I do think this bot lane can step it up, but I would like to see this team play around topside primarily, play around Wunder and Caps, because these two have shown that they are world class, they are elite level, they are super strong and in really good form right now. This means that I basically have the same top three as I think everyone else in the world that I've seen. And in number 3, I have JDG. JDG have been to both finals of the LPL this year. They have won a spring split, and for good reason. Kanavi in the jungle is really, really good, and their mid 2v2 is really good as well. I think the mid 2v2 relies a lot on Kanavi though, because I think their mid laner Yagao is good but not the best. Let's put it that way. I think he fits what the team wants to do. He's good in the context of the team, but he's not the best individual player. Zoom in the top line I'm a big fan of. I think he's a formidable player. He's really good in lane, really good out of lane as well. And so I think JDG can play around the mid 2v2 and transition to top, transition to bot as well. This is a very versatile team. From the summer finals, I think one weakness that I saw was Kanavi getting caught out a couple of times, where he was invading top esports' jungle, and most of the time that was with no objectives on the map, and so he went down and nothing really came from that. But once or twice they gave up a dragon for that. Not the end of the world, but just little cracks in an otherwise really solid team. Their bot lane to me is no eye catcher, but I've also seen no games where they threw the game away. They do their job and they do it well. At number 2, I have Damwon. I think this team is insanely good. I think their jungle mid duo is only second to top esports. Showmaker and Canyon are two really good players. Canyon, the best jungler in Korea at the moment, I think. He's been beasting it all summer split. And Showmaker basically does the same in mid lane. And so their mid jungle is frightening. Nuguri in top lane, I would say still has some of the same similar games to last year, where, you know, we've seen his Vladimir with Kleptomancy and stuff like that. And sometimes he still does similar stuff, and it's kind of a meme on the LCK broadcast, you know, the 0-2 Nuguri power spike, because he does go down in lane sometimes, but his wave management and other factors are just so good that it doesn't really matter, and he still wins out the lane. And then the bot lane is really unique, in my opinion. Ghost and Beryl are not your typical AD carry and support lane. It's more of a self-sufficient, intelligent bot laner and a roaming support. So Beryl, he picks the Bard, he picks the Pantheon, where he can have a global presence. He can team up with Canyon and open up the map for Damwon. And Ghost holds his own in the bot lane even when Beryl is gone. Still keeps up in farm, is intelligent enough not to die. He backs off the turret when he's in danger of getting dove. And so with the new bot lane compared to last year, I think this team has gotten a big upgrade where they just function better as a team right now, and it has enabled them to become LCK champion and to come into this tournament as my number 2 seed. And number 1, no surprise, I guess, it's Top Esports. I think this team is insane. It's not only their individual members, which I will run down shortly. Knight in the mid lane. No one should be surprised by this guy anymore. He's been in the discussion for best mid laner for a while now. And I think once again, this summer split, he showed why, and he's a big reason for why they were able to win the summer split. Karsa in the jungle is maybe the most well-known name on the team, or maybe it's Jackie Love from IG, because he won Worlds 2 years ago. I think Karsa in the jungle does a really, really awesome job around Knight in the mid lane. I think their mid-jungle duo is the best in the world. For them, it's kind of a little bit the other way around as with JDG. I think Knight is their alpha in their mid-jungle duo, and Karsa is just shortly behind him. Jackie Love in the bot lane has been performing insanely well over the summer split. Every time I see this team, he's performing really well. He's playing really well. And then 369 in the top lane. I love this player. I'm a big fan. And I've heard this. I don't know if this is really why he named himself this way, but the metaphor I've heard for his name is that the team throws a dice for his performance, and either it comes up a 3, a 6, or a 9. Kind of, I don't know if it's like out of 10 of his performance or something, but if it is like that, I think it's more of a 5, 7, or 9. When he really gets going, he's a 9 out of 10. He's really insane. He can carry the team, and I don't think that's why I'm saying it's a 5, 7, 9. I don't think his floor is a 3 out of 10 for a pro player. I think it's at least a 5. Maybe it's even a 7, 8, 9. I think he can have these a little bit worse games where he's still, I think, not gonna be a big reason. He's not gonna cost TES a game. It's not that level of volatility. And then in the bot lane and support, they have Yuyanja, who's a support player. And before I started watching the LPL playoffs, I heard that he was kind of the weak point for TES. But after watching their entire run, I must say, sure, he's no Jackie Love, he's no Knight, he's no Karsa yet, maybe. Maybe he can develop there. But what I've seen from him, I've been actually positively surprised. I like his play a lot. And he's the weak point of this team by definition, because all of the other players are so insane. So it's definitely no slight on him to say he is the worst player on this team. He's still really, really good. So there you have it. This is my ranking of the 16 teams participating in the group stage of Worlds 2020. If you like this video, feel free to like and share. And yeah, look forward to my preview of the individual groups, which is hopefully gonna come out tomorrow. Thanks for watching.